Yes, no, I think it's a discussion we started here in January of 2020. And it was on the back of an OECD report that was published right before our event in 2020, which looked at the impact of technology on the global workforce and predicted that 1 billion people would need to significantly reskill to be able to take advantage of the technological transformation that was occurring at the time and has accelerated since then. So that was the start of the Reskilling Revolution initiative, shepherded by the WEF with lots of different participants, public sector, private sector, civil society, all part of this discussion. What would need to be done to address this issue and make sure that people have the opportunity to participate in the technological transformation? And, I think the pandemic, and you talked about the pandemic as a big watershed moment, is, from our perspective, a really look into the future of work. So what happens when demographic trends start to impact economic growth and access to workforce? In this case, impacted by a healthcare crisis, but it just restricted the access of people. And as you will all have seen earlier this morning, China reported for the first time in 50 years that their population has now stopped growing and is starting to decline. We all know 8 billion on the planet a couple of months ago was the number, heading towards 10. But that's it. Then there is no further population growth coming. So demographic trends were very visible. The impact of technology when we had to change very, very quickly. We pivoted on how we got work done, how the workforce and employees were engaging, how employers were reacting. So really looking at rapid transformative evolution of technology and how that changed the interaction. You looked at individuals who, of course, had to pivot and adjust to a new environment and work in different ways, but also discovered the opportunity to work in different ways that suited them better. So the long-awaited possibility to better balance work and life, and what that means for their preferences as they look ahead into their career choices. And last but not least, companies having to pivot very quickly, working in different ways, leveraging technology in ways that they had not anticipated. So very quickly, during the pandemic, we got to look into what happens when those structural trends really come to impact at scale. And what we can observe is we're able to change much faster than we thought. We are able to pivot as individuals. We're able to pivot as organizations. Society is able to adjust. Many good things can happen, but also it provides stark evidence of the fact that those that have the skills can fully participate. We sometimes forget in our excitement over remote working that this is the minority of the workforce, by and large, of the global workforce, and in most countries that are able to participate in remote working, because during the pandemic we also saw the extraordinary effort and impact the frontline workers had. So the conclusion is the progress we are making is quite significant, but not sufficient. And I had the opportunity to participate earlier in a session of the Reskilling Revolution champions, looking back and seeing where the progress lies. And I'm pleased to report to this audience that from a public sector perspective, whether it's the Secretary of Labor for the US, Commissioner Schmidt for the EU, Minister Indira from India, the public sector realizes this is going to be a big challenge. So they are aware of the challenge that is coming their way on a rapidly changing environment where new skills are going to be needed faster than any time before, which is a good evolution. I am also pleased to report that from a private sector perspective, 80% of employers today are investing heavily in reskilling and upskilling their own workforce. And whenever possible, also at a broader scale, helping society and their communities upskill the workforce at large.
So that's really interesting. So you think the pandemic accelerated the public sector's appreciation of the challenge?
I think the public sector realized that this is, look at how quickly we have to adjust. Look at how quickly whatever we thought was going to happen in terms of interaction between employers and employees all gets upended in 3 weeks. And we have to find new ways of verifying identities, checking references, things like that. And I think it's, whilst we're far from gaining traction at any level of speed of market, I think it's very encouraging to see that the public sector across the world, very developed markets, very mature labor markets, very fast growing, the biggest labor market in the world, India, are making great strides to embrace the digital transformation as it relates to the need for new skills of the workforce.
So I'm going to